lay in bed and like I just finished a 14-hour day and I'm laying in bed and I've been up for 17 hours. I'm wide awake. Why am I wide awake? And I started going through everything I'm doing. I'm like, I just have more energy. I'm drinking less caffeine. I'm doing everything right. I'm like, wow, this is kind of crazy. I was pulling 2 jobs, like 90 hours a week for a good 3-4 months and not taking any money from FreshFit because I knew we needed to save some as we were getting ready for winter. Probably another $170,000. I'm like, what?
Additional?
Additional.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It Rhymes with Odd, and you're watching and listening to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Today, we're talking all things healthy eating, business ownership, and just all the fun stuff going on with Aaron Anderson. What's going on, man?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Aaron is the co-owner of FreshFit Meals and the business manager of FreshFit Meals. And you have how many locations here in the metro?
2 so far.
Okay, very cool. So for people that don't know, we'll start with FreshFit Meals. What is FreshFit Meals for the person that's never heard of it before?
Yeah, so FreshFit, we have basically 45, 50 meal options right when you walk inside the door. So we're a little bit unique on the meal company base because we do have a brick and mortar store. We have 2 locations. So you can walk in, you can grab 1 meal, or you can grab a full week's worth, whatever you want to do. So gluten-free, low-carb, dairy-free options. We also have meal plans. We can sit down with you and go over your health goal. Each meal is roughly 90 seconds. It's all fresh, and that is the baseline of it all. Quick, easy, simple, healthy.
That's really cool, man. So before we dig into kind of more about FreshFit Meals, I will say thank you for he brought gifts, everybody. So First Form, we're looking for pod sponsorships. We got First Form energy drinks.
We're going to cheers this?
Blue raspberry. And what do you got?
I got Citrus Blast.
Nice. Take a swig here. I was telling him he also would drink bourbon with me, but it is 10 a.m. currently today, so a little early for that.
A little early. I'm on 75 hard, too.
Oh, gosh. There you go.
I can't even drink.
There you go. So we got an Andy Frisella's theme here. Are you a personal fan of his?
Oh, he's awesome. Okay. Yeah.
That's cool.
I follow like basically 3 to 4 main, they're all guys, so all guys that are kind of business owners, entrepreneurs in the world. So
Sure. Well, I kind of dig into that as well, and I know their marketing team was here for RagBri, so they had 4 or 5 Jeep Gladiators full of this stuff in coolers. They just came up and started just handing them out to people. So it's always cool to see the guerrilla marketing, even for a huge company like
they stopped into a couple of our store, both Urban Hill and Ankeny, actually. So
okay. Did you guys carry their stuff before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, they just walked in and like, hey, here's some stuff.
Yeah, no. They gave us like beef jerky and things like that too. So it was kind of cool. But
that's dope. Yeah, I think it's always fun. We gravitate towards people that we want to be similar to, or that they kind of stand for certain things. I know I followed Andy's podcast for many years just because he's one of the few people that will just say whatever he wants to say.
Yeah, that's the best part.
And people hate that because they can't control. It's like, oh, don't say that. It's like, oh, you can say whatever he wants. It's his own show, so it's always fun. So to kind of dig into your story, I think it's an interesting one. So I think we'll probably go back to, I would say high school or college. When did you first get into health, fitness? Because to run a store that does what you guys do, you probably have to have some kind of tie to the health side of things. So tell me a little bit about, did you play sports in high school? Were you always into healthy eating? How did you first get into this stuff?
Yeah, so I grew up wrestling. That was my entire life growing up, all the way from high school to college. It's what I did, what I loved, and what I dedicated my entire life to for that period of time, I guess.
What high school did you go to?
Clarion Goldfield.
Here in Iowa?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, north central Iowa.
Okay.
So by Fort Dodge, Mason City, that area.
Gotcha. What weight did you wrestle at?
103, 112, 112, and 120.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I was a little guy.
I was going to say, dude,
Still kind of am, but
110 pounds, that's just crazy. That's some crazy dieting.
Yeah, it wasn't horrible. Cutting weight definitely sucks. I cut more in high school, or I did in high school, than I did in college, which was nice. College is 133 all 4 years. So not a lot of weight cutting there. Some, but not a lot.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about, wrestling typically has a pretty stigmatized dieting program. It's cutting weight, really. A lot of schools.
Just cutting weight.
And I've shot videos for other wrestling programs like the Metro. Their team doesn't cut, and I'm like,
that's good.
That's all we did in high school. I didn't wrestle. I played basketball, but it's all my buddies were just miserable. But we also whooped a lot of people's butts on the mat, so a lot of it's that. But what was kind of your relationship with food when you were that age, and how did it change as you got older?
Basically, cutting the weight, it was always cut as much water and don't eat. and work out 3 times a day to make your weight. That was pretty much what it was. It's definitely changed with some of the older guys, or I guess people our age really now that were coming up, like the David Taylors or Kyle Dakes. Like they're not really cutting weight. They just wrestle at the weight they're wrestling at, which I think that is changing a lot of philosophy, which I think is a good thing. Just cutting weight sucks. You're miserable. I about quit probably like close to quitting 2 or 3 times. I'm glad I didn't back like thinking about it, but it's a grueling thing to put yourself through. Don't recommend it for really anyone. So I'll never be a bodybuilder because I've already done 8 years of that. I don't want to do more cutting weight. So
Sure. Well, and I would say, I mean, yes, there's some negativity to the mindset, but what did wrestling give you in terms of like benefits? Because I think some of the most mentally fortified people I know were like really long-term wrestlers because you've been through literal hell on earth for a while. Like it's terrible, and you volunteer to do it. Tell me a little bit about some of the benefits you got from doing that.
Yeah, just if you're going through a hard time, you just look back, like especially right now when I'm in 75 hard. I'm at day 59 right now. But like I'm getting reminded of what I was mentally back in my wrestling days. Just mental fortitude, mental toughness, like nothing. I'm unstoppable is pretty much what I feel like. And that's how I felt with wrestling. You're going through the whole process of like, you're doing something hard and you're getting rewarded for it. Maybe not in the moment, but later on you look back like, okay, I just did all of that. I'm prepared. I know I can do this, this, and this now. I'm not scared of really anything other than heights and spiders. But
sure.
But everything I'm like, cool, I can do that. It's not a big deal.
Sure. Heights still get me. I just got back from a trip in Zion. We went hiking, my buddies and I, and they all wanted to do the Angel's Landing, which is you get to the top and there's just a chain and a 4,000-foot drop.
I could do it.
I'm like, dude, I'm going to just like slip with my sweaty hands and all the way to the bottom and die. I'm like, there's no way. So I totally agree with that stuff. So tell me a little bit. So you did wrestling up all through high school. Did you do it in college too?
Yep, in college as well.
Because where'd you go to college?
Central in Pella.
I'm a Simpson guy.
Oh, no.
We're going to have to end the podcast
Here we go.
right now. Like, close it down. No, that's cool. My sister-in-law went to Pella, and then all of my wife's like cousins. I've been to like more graduations in Pella than I have in Indianola. It's a healthy hatred, I should say, for no reason. Like I don't know why we hate each other. It's
like 30 minutes away.
It's the generational like, oh, you're a freshman, you're like, hey, we hate these people, but you can like these people. Like, okay,
yeah, that's fair.
Because what did you major in when you were there?
My major was crazy. It was business finance, or it is business finance, but I was actually studying biology and chemistry. Want to go on the lines of being a doctor. Mom's in healthcare, and a lot of my family is, so it's like cool. I want to do that, help people. That was my main purpose, and I freaking am not book smart or anything with school related. So I hard passed that as I got to my junior year. I'm like, well, my GPA sucks. There's probably no chance of getting into med school. My standardized tests suck because I'm bad at testing. And then I switched business finance. I'm like, oh, this clicks, and my GPA shot up, and everything just came easy and natural. So.
Was there other external pressures to do healthcare? Or was it just like, oh, my family does it, I should do it type thing?
It was mostly that. My parents were very, very, very supportive. They'll like, hey, do what you want to do what you love, and that's it. I'm like, perfect. So I just kind of, that's honestly, I think for me, that was the best way to get raised.
Sure. No, I love that. Like the supportive stuff's always helpful because then you can explore. Because everyone's always like, I hate that. Like you go to a high school graduation party and the kid doesn't know, like, what are you doing after high school? And like, I don't know. And everyone's always like, ugh. I'm like, the people that say, oh, pre-med at Yale, they're probably not going to finish what they...
Yeah, I definitely did not.
Yeah, it's like, even if they get that far, they might become a doctor, and then they're like, I hate this, and I just, wasted 15 years of college, and now what? So no one knows what they're doing in life, I've established, so.
No.
So you graduate. Tell me a little bit about like your career path. Did you go into the business finance round, or did you go somewhere else?
Yeah, so let's see. So I love leadership. As wrestling has taught me, leadership is probably one of my favorite things in the world. Leadership in people and business now. And I just fell into it. I've always been kind of the silent leader. I'm getting a little more vocal and lead by example now, as I kind of have to with my role. But it started out as I was looking, okay, I want to get into management. And I was looking at, okay, how do I get into management? Well, you got to be good at sales. I'm an introvert at heart. I'm not going to be good at selling. Now I look back, I'm like, I'm going to be horrible at that for right now. And I going to cold call. I just tried to sell insurance for 3 weeks. I got yelled at inside the office for not selling in. They're going to book appointments. I'm like, you haven't been training me. I don't know what to do. Walked to my boss's office, like, hey, read this book. It was The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It was the first book that got me into reading for wrestling. I'm like, read this. He's like, all right. I'm like, by the way, I'm done. I do not want to work here anymore. He's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, my life motto is I'll figure it out. That's what I said. Walked out the door. And 3 weeks later, landed at Hy-Vee for assistant manager.
Okay. Did you work there in high school or college or?
No, I had basically in college, we did a kind of a fireside or fire round of like interviews, like quick 3-4 minute interviews with like other managers or business owners in the area. And one of them had to be a Hy-Vee manager. And I connected with her and then reached out to her. And then she's like, I think I get you a job here. And got a job, and there we go. So that's how I landed at Hy-Vee.
Sure. So in your assistant manager role, was that kind of your first introduction to the food space and that type of stuff? And tell me a little bit about like what intrigued you about that, or because you're still in that industry now. So tell me a little bit about how that influenced your career.
Yeah, it's a hustle. And that's one thing that wrestling also taught me. And then inside business, everything is a hustle, and there's no slow moments. And that's what Hy-Vee kind of reminded me of. It was fun. I mean, there's definitely some days that I did not like. That's with anything you do, and there's going to be things you don't like. But yeah, it was just a hustle and grind the whole time you were there. There wasn't really a lot of slacking off. Barely got a break sometimes for the role I was in, just from it was a high demand. We had to watch the front, had to make sure all the ad stuff was stocked from that end. So
sure. Well, then you learn like the grocery industry and food service. It's like there's a lot of I would say risk, or just like there's things that involve that industry that don't affect other things. Like your product, if you don't sell it, expires and now it's worthless and you have to throw it away. So it's like learning how to get product in, out, like constant flow of inventory in and out, because you can't, if you're a manufacturer, you can get in like steel. And okay, no one bought a car this month, but it sits in the warehouse and it's fine. If you buy a ton of bananas, they're literally like rotten in like 3 days. So you have to, I'm sure it's a unique, interesting challenge.
Yeah, which is cool. It'll teach me the first in, first out method, which you study in college, but like how many people actually use everything they use from college? Probably 5% is what I would say.
Right.
95% of what I've learned is hands-on, and that's the best way I learned too. Some people might be better at books versus, et cetera. But first in, first out, that's what really Hy-Vee taught me. I saw a lot of waste stuff. That's food. You usually always have a little bit of waste. So especially at that scale, Hy-Vee is.
Sure. No, I think that's an interesting perspective. So you were at Hy-Vee. Tell me what was next in your career path?
Next, what LinkedIn brought me this. I swear this is what happened. I posted something on LinkedIn, and I had like 100 people that I was matched with, connected with. And something about employees first. That's my big thing. It's like a Gary Vee thing, which I 100% agree with him on that. That's why I always say it should be employees first, or you work for your employees versus the other way around. That's where you get the best results, and everyone's typically happier versus trying to be this dictator yelling down on how to, hey, do your job this way, do your job this way. And next thing you know, I get a LinkedIn message from the president of the company at the time of FreshFit, or what was it called back then? I don't remember the name of it. I think brick and mortar LLC or something in the terms of that.
Okay.
But FreshFit meals. So messaged me, and he's like, he sit down for health and wellness and just chit chat. I'm like, yeah, connections are good. Like, this is good. I think I've talked to you a couple of times before this, but
sure.
Yeah, connections are great. And so I'm never going to shy away from that. Sat down and talked to him. I love the idea and product behind it all. And went in for the next interview and offered me the job. I'm like, cool, don't see why not. Startup, be fun, don't really care. And lo and behold, the store director, when I came and put my 2 weeks in, he's like, you know what you could do here? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is, the high risk. What happens if it fails? I'm like, lo and behold, I'll figure it out. I'm like, it'll be okay. At the end of the day, everything is okay.
Sure. So you came in right as a store manager, correct? Yep. Which location were you running at the time?
That was Urbandale. So that's the main hub.
Okay.
So that's where the kitchen makes the food plus the storefront.
Okay. Gotcha. Because that's not your current, like the Clive location area?
Yeah, it's Clive.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh man, don't even get me started about that. Like you cross the road and you're in the different town. Like
weird.
It's silly. I just shot a video at Nick Rouse's gym. So he's a personal trainer for Push Pedal Pull a couple days ago at his house, and it's like, he told me it was in Urbandale, but I looked on maps, it said Waukee, and then I got out there, it was Dallas Center. Grimes was the school right next door, but that's not the school district. I'm like, you guys, put lines on the ground. Like, we can't do this anymore, these like unknown territories. So So what were some of the things you learned? Like, because you said it was like trial by fire. So what were some of the things that you had to learn on the fly while you're there?
Well, I had to make my first hire. I walked in. So originally, kind of the thought process was, they're bringing someone in, and I was coming in to manage the store, and then this husband and wife were there managing. They didn't know I was getting interviewed. They thought the husband is going to get the job at this other location. They're going to open up stores. Whoever has the best store is going to get the next stores, et cetera. So more money, more exponential growth, essentially. Well, they did not like the fact that I was getting interviewed, so they both left. So right when I walked in, right when I walked in the door, it was his family working with him, running the store, and his kids. He's like, all right, well, everyone quit, so this is now your store. I'll help you, and we'll get some people hired. I'm like, oh, so I'm the only employee minus the kitchen staff. So I had no one up front help me in the sell or anything. So there was a couple weeks in there. It was some long weeks.
So were you like cooking the food, checking people out?
No.
Like, you got those people
Just
hired quickly?
Checking people out. That's literally all I was doing. Checking people out and selling.
Okay.
And then, the kitchen was running by itself on that end, so just kind of watching the food. Plus, they also had two other stores, a West Des Moines and Ankeny store at that time. So as I was getting in, those two were staffed, but we were trying to get food to those locations. So I learned a lot, I would say, from building or seeing the side of it as I was coming in to where we are now. I knew not what to do using someone else's money, which is the best way to do it.
Sure.
And so I made my first hire from that end. Not the best hire in the world. But I mean, it is what it is.
Sure. You live and learn, right? Yeah, it's the process there. I think it's interesting too, because a lot of people, if they have a vision for what they like, if say you had thought, I want to start my own health food restaurant store type of thing, like you said, it's a lot easier to come into an existing one, learn the good things, the bad things, the things that you could change or adapt to make them better, more efficient, more profitable, and then go off and do it on your own. I think that's such a smart way to do it with any industry, because we've talked about this too. I've had a couple people on that. One of them's Trent Murphy, and his episode will probably come out in we're on like episode 20, and this one won't probably come out until Christmas because it's been so many weeks out. But his whole story was he sold his family business of there was 20 employees that were in it. And just like the process of like he came in as employee number 2, grew up to 20 employees. Like you learn a lot from just going ground up to being like, okay, now there's 20 employees. Now you're in the top spot. You don't know anything. Like you learn a lot more that way.
You do. And that's what I loved about it. Like anything small business, anyone that's in college or high school, the best way to learn if you want to get into business is maybe a little bit of college. It teaches you just kind of the technical aspects of things, but getting down to the nitty gritty, just work in a small business and you're going to learn a lot more.
Sure.
You are your grassroots of everything.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about those. How long were you in that store manager role?
So I was there for 2 years. And the guy that hired me got let go like 3 weeks after he hired me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a crazy turn of events, which I figured what was happening. As like the owners came in from Texas, and I'm like, oh, I just met the owners, which I don't really think of anything on titles or people. I just treat them as a normal human being. Like it's how it should be, right? Or it should be done anyway. So he got let go. Then another guy named Matt came in, and he was awesome. He helped build another company that's similar to ours, or basically how all these other meal prep companies basically just copycatted this company that went under, and everything kind of just dispersed. So he taught me more than, like, if I didn't have him, there's no way we'd be where we are right now without that. So that part's awesome. But going into that piece, then I ended up going to Winterset Cidery.
Okay.
So 2 years of that, kind of rebuilt everything. They didn't want to grow as fast. So in my mind, it was, they had 55 supplement stores, so they were kind of whatever. In the whole process, we shut down the West Des Moines Ankeny store, and then it was just Urbandale left. So that was kind of a crazy thing to see. It wasn't a fun thing to see either because he had to let people go. Thankfully, I didn't have to. And, well, I ended up leaving because they didn't want to grow anymore. So
Sure. So you're at the cidery, right?
Yep, cidery.
And they called you back, or what? How did you come? So
this is a fun story.
Yeah. So because the story really goes like you worked as a store manager, you left for a while, and then you came back and bought it with some partners. So tell me about like you said, there were some staffing issues going on when you were there before. What really drew you back to it, or the opportunity to buy into it and actually own the chain there?
Yeah, so going like 2 years of it, the first year was all about rebuilding for the Fresh Fit piece of it. So it was understanding every little methodical piece that was going in, the financial pieces, all of that, and how to build it. And we did. Within that 1 year, we kind of turned things around. And then within that next year, without having control of the money, and Matt was in like once every couple months. So really in tune, it was like me in the kitchen and that team building the company, and we grew it by 40% within that 1 year. So I'm like, okay, there's something here. But again, they didn't want to grow, so I ended up leaving for more opportunities. I'm a big growth mindset person. And so went to Winterset Cidery, did all that, and that was more of Nick and Nina. They're purchasing it. They need someone to help them run it, so I came and ran it with them. And then through that whole process, COVID was happening. So this is 2019, 2020. So how the process works. December 2019, Nick and I were on our way to Oakland for a cider con. There's the thing. So it's really cool. You just drink a bunch of cider, get drunk, and hang out with people and just talk cider. It's cider chat.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was. Met some people from Ireland. Yeah, it was a cool spot. And he was working for Amex at the time, and there's some stuff going on of like, they're big in the world. So he's getting emails about this COVID thing. I'm like, what is this? Like, what's going to happen? Here we go. Well, then of course March happens and everything just shuts down. I was still going to work, so it was literally just me in the basement in the cider. Well, also I wanted to try to buy a house. So I was in the process of looking for a house because I want to get out of the apartment or the townhome I think I was in at that time. And really, like, I probably saw 30 houses, picky, like, and wasn't making a ton of money either. So it was like trying to figure that piece out, financial ends. And I'm like, cool, well, this one might work. Well, I'll put an offer on this house. And this whole time prior, I was like, if Fresh Fit came for sale to my parents, I would probably buy it, like, depending on what the price is, right? We'd figure out a way to buy it. Well, it turns out that house ended up following through. They raised about another $20,000, and there was 10 offers on it, and they just took it off the market. Mm-hmm. 3 days later, now my business partners and I are in this talk of purchasing Fresh Fit. And this
That's
is
crazy.
Yeah, it all had this was I think May 2020. I put an offer on their house, and then end of May 2020. It was starting to like happen. Like we were like, hey, this is happening. They're selling the corporate house. They shut down the Texas locations. My light bulb's starting to go off. And I told my parents like this in March, April. So it was like almost a dream come true, or like I was thinking about this is going to happen.
Because how did that come up? Like you thought ahead of time, like if that came up for sale.
I don't know why I thought it. I just love the company and loved what we were trying to do and accomplish and helping people basically fighting obesity. I mean, that's essentially the core value of what we're trying to do is defeat that disease. Call it disease because it pretty much is. But and that's I don't know why I said it to my parents then, but I said it and I remember saying it, and then now here we are. It's a wild thing.
There's like divine intervention or something, like the stars align.
Strange.
Because you think like if you hadn't thought of that ahead of time, you wouldn't even had your mind. Because how did you know that they were set? Did you hear previous employees like selling pieces off?
Literally had no idea.
Okay.
Literally, like, if I tell you, I'm like, it was a thought in my head that happened, and I wasn't the happiest at the cider just from it wasn't my cup of tea. Like, it was fun at the bar, the orchard, at lawn care. I did not like basement. I don't like work with my hands on mechanical stuff, and that was a lot of my job. Absolutely despise it. Don't want to touch it. Like, I'd rather hire someone to do that. I have a really long fuse with people when it comes to mechanical and trying to build something. It's like super small.
Sure.
And I'll just flip it. Like, I threw boxes, and I don't get mad. But when I was down there, I was just getting mad and frustrated. And so I was like, probably the grass isn't always green on the other side kind of philosophy. And I'm like, I kind of miss Fresh Fit. If, it came for sale, I'd probably buy it. So I don't want to go back there and work there because I'm not going to grow. Like, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. Yeah, so just me telling my parents, and then later on, 5 months later, house fell through, and I'm like, oh, well, we just bought the company. That's crazy.
That's insane. So tell me, so you went in with some partners. What were like? How did you guys? Did you just approach the owners, and how did you kind of put together a business plan on things to change? Because obviously you don't want to just come in and take it over the way it is, because they're selling things off, and there's some changes you'd want to make.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I made sure was, we were sitting down and talking about it. Okay, well, what are the next steps? This is probably middle of June. About us sitting down and actually talking about, okay, what's the plan? What's the course of action? How do we go do this? So then we went. Becca was the manager at the time. She's our dietitian. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, all right, Becca, well, you have to go talk to Matt. Like, next phone call, this is probably end of June right now, 2020. You're going to have to tell Matt, like, hey, what if someone bought Fresh Fit? And she's texting the group chat. She asked, and she's like, well, hold on one second. He goes back to Brian's office in Texas. Matt asked Brian, and Brian's like, yeah, let's look at it. It was a yes. Oh, he's like, well, we want to buy it. And that was how the whole thing started spinning. It was end of June 2020.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about the process of purchasing a business, because I've talked with a couple other people that have done this, and there's all different ways to do it, right? It's not like a lot of times when someone thinks about buying a business, it's like, oh, I'm selling it for $1 million. Here's $1 million cash. Thank you. We shake hands and move on. It's like, it's usually a longer drawn out process. There's different ways to do it with like profit share, rev payback. You can do financing through a bank. Like, what did you guys do to get to actually purchase it?
That was a fun and wild experience, let me tell you.
Because you went from like throwing tools in an orchard basement to now you're like probably talking with lawyers and finance people, the banks and everything. How'd that?
It was crazy. I don't know how I got through that freaking month, but it was fun. It was fun because it was a new project that I could work on that I had no idea what I was doing, and that's what I like. I like breaking calculated systems. Like I like breaking things and then calculating how do we fix it. But again, it's not gonna like destroy the world or destroy the company if I'm doing stuff. It might feel like it, but I have a calculated risk in there, and that's what it really felt like. It was an exciting project to work on, and going into that July, it was okay. Well, I got a Zoom call with Brian, and I didn't know the price. And this is within 24 hours. He's like, hey, I'll have it to you next week. He texts me, is like, hey, you got time for a chat today on Zoom? I'm like, yeah. Jumped on Zoom, and I'm trying to keep it straight because I don't know how much you can sell it for. So business valuation, it's all really based on the owner, or you can do a multiple, a variable of our revenue or a profit, right?
Yeah, because I know with my limited Shark Tank experience, it's usually, 4 to 5 years of revenue is the valuation, something like that.
You can really value it however you want to do. He valued it based on what he thought it was worth, and that's how our conversation was. This is what I feel like it's worth. And sometimes restaurant, if you're doing it right, sometimes it's a 9x of your profit, or you can do like a 4x of your revenue, something like that. That's typically how they're structured. Sure. And so I'm calculating this is going to be way, way more than anticipated. Like, okay, I'm just trying to hold my breath. He shows me the number, and I'm like, straight face, I'm like, okay. And I text the group chat, I'm like, it's this price. We're good. Like, this is going to happen.
It was significantly less than what you expected.
By 5x.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
So they must have just been ready to sell. Like they were probably just over it,
Yeah, and that was our conversation the night before. I'm like, hey, look, Brian, like, he's like, well, why do you guys want to buy it? It was just me and him talking. I'm like, well, you guys are you're in Texas. You just sold off the company house that Matt was staying at, trying to sell some other things, trying to sell the van. You sold off the Texas location, so Fresh Fit, and you have 60 supplement stores you're worried about, and you're already successful there. He's like, yeah, it's a good point. But I'm not going to really do much with this anymore. And lo and behold, that pretty much what happened. And the next day, he's like, it's this price. Cool. Straight faced. Cool. We'll figure it out. And he's like, well, I'll do this. And then, so what he did was he personal financed it to us. And by then, I was also talking to some other banks and getting a loan for a restaurant. Restaurant is the highest risk business in the entire world of business.
Yeah, it's like 8 out of 10 fail in the first year, 9 out of 10 in the first 5, something like that. So,
and we're in the height of COVID right now, so no banks want to give you any money. And I'm meeting with them, and they're like, no, or some other bank advisors, there's a low chance you're even getting this amount. Like, it's not going to happen, or it's going to take you 90 to 120 days to even get the money. Like, well, we have like 30. Because I wanted to close on August 1st, 2020, because I knew going into the winter months we were going to make it slow, so we need to get some cash flow and cash in the bank built up to survive those winter months. That was the thought process. So Brian personal financed everything, which we just actually paid off. So he did a 10% interest over the course of 3 years, and we just pay him a fixed rate. So August 1st, 2020, it kicked in to August 1st, 2023, we finished it, which we literally just did it.
That's exciting, man. Congrats on that. Because that's nice to just get that off your shoulders and feel like, okay, now there's like clear runway. We're not getting drugged back from like a chunk of our profit has to keep going to this loan every time we.
Well, yeah, no, that's the Ankeny location. But
sure.
that was another story. That's a good story too.
Sure.
But yeah, so, and I also went through, and he warned me about this too for the lawyer piece. So I was talking to lawyers, obviously getting our company LLC set up. Midwest Meal Prep LLC is the LLC name or whatever thing's under. And I went through 4 of them. And he's like, hey, which nothing against lawyers. That's just my personal experience in 2020. No one wanted to give us money. Brian was nice with personal finance. He lives in Texas. I know there's nothing wrong with the company. That he's not trying to hide anything. I made sure that the only thing reliable for is that Urbandale location. Nothing that had to do with Texas. It was in the purchase agreement. So everything's in check. Been there, done. Well, I went through 4 different lawyers. Each one, 3 of them were like, you shouldn't do this. I'm like, it's not your money.
Right.
And
what was their reasoning? Just too high risk?
Yeah, too high risk.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the business? I'm like, yeah, I did this for 2 years. I've grown it without having the money. Like, well, what about them? Are they going to come in and repurchase it, or what are they going to do? I'm like, it doesn't matter about them. They're not going to do anything. I know them. They're not going to touch it. There's no way. They live in Texas. It was that whole spiel of 3 different times. Then I had one guy that finally bit. I was like, all right, cool, I'll do it for you, for drawing up a draft for partnership, and then also the purchase agreement, reading over what was in there. And Brian was like, just do it for practice. I'm not going to do anything. Like, I don't really care. That's literally what I said. And it was great practice. It was a good runaway practice with lawyers. With nothing bad against lawyers, and just that experience kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't fun. But yeah. And then honestly, that last lawyer that we went through, he tried to draw it out another 2 weeks because things weren't like drawn out right on the purchase agreement on like equipment. And there's some like super small detail stuff that did not matter. And I'm like, no, we're just going to sign this. So literally we signed from the time we talked to Brian to the time we purchased the company within 28 days. It was a 28-day close on a business.
That's wild.
It was insane.
Sure. So with the purchase of it, did you get like the branding, the website, the locations, the employees, like what comes with it, what doesn't in terms of like the purchasing stuff?
So asset purchase agreement basically means you're just taking over everything, just under a different LLC name. So we got all the equipment, all the employees, the website, the customer database, all of it. So that was the nice piece, but then it's not under the umbrella anymore either. So then we're just running it. But if we would have went under, he would the agreement would have been reacquiring the company.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, that's cool, man. I think, and congrats and kudos for getting as far as you have with, like you said, height of COVID, one of the riskiest industries you could get into. What were some of the changes or the things that you guys did to kind of weather that storm to get out ahead of it and start getting profitable to the point where you guys could grow another location?
Yeah, so that piece, as soon as I signed the papers in the document, I just basically popped a champagne bottle. That was fun in the kitchen. I'm like, let's go. But that first, I still was at the cidery. I didn't tell Nick and you that I actually was purchasing this till probably like 3 days prior. I'm like, I know this is going to happen. And they're like happy for me. And I'm like, I didn't think you'd be happy for me. This is scary. This is something new. I didn't know how they would react. So you got to kind of protect, where you're making money. And then like, by the way, this is happening. So I did actually the cider for the next, probably 3.5, 4 months.
Okay.
So on top of everything now that I'm doing the fresh fit, Becca was still running the store. So I was pulling 2 jobs, like 90 hours a week for a good 3-4 months and not taking any money from Fresh Fit because I knew we needed to save some as we were getting ready for winter. Luckily, toward the end, I was starting to take some and I left the cidery. So that helped a lot. And I was in the store a lot more, which is the best way to do it is you want to be kind of the owner operator while you're in there versus kind of overseeing unless you just have a ton of money to do that. But, yeah, and that's pretty much how we went through that first 6 months. And then 2021, COVID definitely helped health and fitness industry. People realized they should probably be a little more fit, just from, it's healthier lifestyle.
Sure.
To go a long way around about it.
It's the best shield against COVID is just be healthy.
Yeah.
If you're
sickness in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just have a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's great. So when you first took over the stores and started doing it, was there like a big push in marketing? Was there, you guys already had the existing customer base. What were some of the things you guys did to get, again, some more cash flow in the door before that winter time came along?
Honestly, it was just continuing to do what we're doing. So it was still going to do well, regardless. We had put working capital stuff in. So we had money in the bank that was going to get us through the end of the winter. It was more of like a safety precaution thing, just in case, we did go through another set of shutdowns. The Lord we didn't, because that would have really sucked. And that was a conversation with Brian. I'm like, hey, if we go through another shutdown, like, are you good if we don't pay you or like help? He's like, yeah, it's fine. We'll figure it out. We'll gladly work with you on that. So that was like another reassuring piece, like working with him. So it's like working the right person that's selling the business is the best way. Because the way he described it too is people are a little more lenient on things versus banks. If you take money from a bank and they don't get their money, they're going to come after something. You go through a person, they have an emotional attachment to things. Like, yeah, they're understanding. There's no understanding with banks. They're just by the paper, by the book. And that's what I learned kind of from that end of it. But yeah, we didn't really do any changes. And then honestly, we just took off January 2021 and we were booming. It was crazy. Record weeks, record numbers. Especially as I got control of the money, so I started doing some Facebook ads, some Instagram ads. Like we were able to use some of the money I was trying to use when I was a manager, but they didn't want to do it. And now all of a sudden things are just clicking. I'm like, oh, let's go. So.
Sure. So, and I think this is a good point to kind of pause and talk a little bit about how your guys' offering is unique in the marketplace, because there's, like you said, these meal prep companies, there's different ones out there, but it's a unique offering in the fact that you guys do a lot of, I mean, you can come in the store and buy out of the fridge and eat in there, but you can also do meal prep long term. What's more like I would say like your highest profit offering, or the thing that's like kind of your cash cow in terms of all the offers that you guys have?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're a volume game, so the more meals you buy, like we make more money off the more meals you buy. Now, I'd say our average customer usually grabs 3 to 4 meals in a smoothie when they walk in. That is by far the most normal thing. And I would say that's our most consistent cash cow.
Like I need lunch for this week, and that smoothie looks good. I want that now.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that's probably the baseline, but I mean people want to see results too. So I mean they switch lunches are going to see results. If they go to a meal plan or meet with Becca on the food piece or Fresh Fit 5 for meal plans, they're going to see crazy results a lot faster than they would if they're just doing lunches or by themselves. And that's kind of the kicker too. I don't believe there's any other. I know that there has to be some. I mean, I'm not going to say there's not. But like what separates us is you can just walk in the door and grab what you want. And then we also have personalized consultations with Becca as a dietitian that can sit down and walk you through everything. And that's all free of charge. You just literally pay for the food. So that's kind of our advantage too. That piece is nice as we're kind of seeing that in the brick and mortar side of things. So
that's great. I think having just like a healthier place to go, because I know there's some places that market as like really healthy, but most of their options wouldn't be the right macros for most people. It's like, oh yeah, it's high protein, but it's also like quadruple the fat content or whatever. You especially look at like, I like to look, I'm the goofy guy at the gas station looking at the labels, like seeing, I'm like nutrition facts, like they'll market 20 grams of protein. Okay, cool. But there's, like I said, quadruple the fat, way more calories, way more carbs. Like for one good thing, you're sacrificing 3 bad things in a food item. So I think that's a good thing to just have that holistic, like if you walk in, everything here, we're really trying to give you a healthy meal. It's not just marketed this way, but it's not actually that way. So
I mean, that's how all those frozen meals and the grocery stores are marketed. They're like high protein or high fiber or low carb. Like you look at the back of those packages and nutrition label compared to ours. I mean, they're going to be cheaper because there's a lot less protein. There's probably 15 grams of protein in those, and they're filling with carbs like 50 or 60 grams of carbs, and you add to the sodium, that's usually north of 1,000. Oh, by the way, they also put a 2-serving thing on there. So now when you're eating that, it's 30 grams of protein, 120 grams of carbs, and about 2,000 milligrams of sodium in one sitting. That's the biggest piece I hate about the food industry is they usually do a serving size of 2 and versus 1, and people just usually look at the 1. They're not multiplying out on the second, on how much the whole thing is worth.
Sure.
For nutritional value piece of it.
No, I think that's huge because I know I had a stint in college. That's how I got into making videos. Was I made eating videos, day in the life, like what like the calorie challenges. Awesome. I did YouTube workout videos. That's how I first started YouTube. I did a weekly video for a year. I only had 40 subscribers at the end of that, and I was like, man, videos are hard. YouTube's hard. But I was watching like Christian Guzman, Max Tuning, Shelly Coker. These guys just like blow up. I'm like, oh, I could totally do this, but I tried to be everyone else and not myself. So that was my biggest like learning from that year of doing that was like, just be yourself. Don't be whoever these people are that you want to emulate. But I think that was big because I was really, I annoyed the hell out of my roommates and my girlfriend, now wife, and my family because I'd be in the grocery store looking, just reading nutrition labels like, and the amount of like false advertising in a box is
so
just
much.
wild. But then also seeing like my father-in-law's has a lot of issues with like heart stuff, so he has like low sodium is kind of his protocol. And then I'll be making dinner and I'm like, oh crap, I just put like, a jar of pasta sauce, but that's got,
Tons of sodium.
so much. Anything canned, anything processed per package has like a ton of sodium. So I'm like, man, it could be good on every other level, but the sodium is like quadruple what you should be having in a day in one serving. So it's really hard. Like it's a hard thing to do. It makes sense why people need help with it.
Yeah. Did you for your YouTube videos, like when you were going through that 4 subscribers, did you just have fun doing it?
Yeah, it was more like getting repetition on like consistently doing a video a week was big. I mean, I was shooting on a GoPro at the time, then I got a decent camera and then started doing commercial projects outside, but it was mainly just the repetition of like practicing shooting, but then also being comfortable on camera was helpful. Yeah. And then kind of my breakout was I shot a lot with Ivane Vucic and Brett Wilkin. Yep. So that was like my first intro into like fitness because I followed them around, did all of Brett's show videos. When we first started shooting with him, he was like competing at 205. Now he's like 305. Like the dude's put on like 100 pounds in 5 years, which is nuts.
He's a Central grad too, right?
Oh yeah, he is. He played football there. Yeah, I forgot about that. But that was kind of my like I said, I started shooting my own stuff, and then I started doing stuff for other athletes and stuff. And fitness has always been my passion. Like it's something that my company is really focused on, like that industry. Like I shoot for, gyms, CrossFit boxes, nutritional company. I just love that stuff because it's like I get the customer base, and it helps come across in video with someone that actually gets it. Where if you're doing like a different type of industry you have no knowledge, interest, or care about, you're just gonna like kind of. But it's like this video's gotta be perfect because I want this to actually, we want to help people. Like you said, the mission of like stay healthy, get fit, that type of thing is a big thing. So it's always fun just like staying in that industry and learning more about it. So
fitness is a unique industry itself. It's definitely an industry. I would like looking back, like before I started, it's like I wouldn't really think it was an industry. It's 100% an industry now. Like it's everywhere.
Well, with the product offerings, I mean, you have like gyms and that like physical exercise places, but you also have like online coaching, you have supplements, you have the food, dieting, all the different stuff. And then I just mentioned I shot for Push Pedal Pull. It's like home equipment buying is like a huge industry too. So it's like finding the right things for the right people. There's so much out there to do. So pretty wild. Were there any people when you were first starting out that you followed online? You mentioned like Andy Frisella, but were there other people that you kind of drew inspiration from?
Andy Frisella, Gary Vee. I mean, listen to them a ton. Now it's Alex Hormozy. All his stuff's awesome.
Dude, he's popped off in the last
he blew up. I mean, that's when he started in the last year and a half. But yeah, he was crazy to see what he's done. And he just breaks everything down so simple. His verbiage and vocabulary and a lot of things, you're like, oh, yeah, that makes way more sense now versus if you try to blow it up in a more complicated sense.
Yeah, that's pretty real. I know I've seen a lot of stuff from Hormozy. The main thing for him is like people trying to emulate his social growth by doing similar style videos like text on screen. Now that's just kind of the normal, what people do. But at the time, that was like groundbreaking. Like animated text on screen, B-roll, like social media, just hitting it every day. He's posting something, but he had a whole team helping him with it too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Gary Vee does it too. He just has someone follow around the camera all day, which is weird, but you said to get used to it.
Yep.
And then they both pump out 300 pieces of content a week off all the platforms, which is outlandish.
So much volume. And I feel like it's overkill, but also just look at the growth. I mean, people didn't know who he was before, and now everyone's like, I mean, for them, the ultimate ROI is if they get one more company in their acquisition company. It's like they've made their money back just by getting one sale. So that's pretty wild. Because I know you mentioned earlier you're doing 75 hard now.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that process. And because I think a lot of people, when they think about owning a business, they think it's like 24/7 all the time. But I think there's another part of it, like you said earlier, where it's you have to take care of yourself, but you also have to have a bigger vision, like a growth mindset. Tell me a little bit about your growth mindset and why you're doing 75 hard right now.
Yeah, it was really, man, that's a long-winded question too. Let me think.
We can start with the growth mindset because you've had that before you took over the company, right?
I've always had that just from wrestling in general. I've always been hungry for knowledge. Like, I'm a big believer in like, you try to learn as much as you can from someone else too. You probably know something about the finishers that I don't, and vice versa. And that's like basically saying, or something about business that I don't, or vice versa. And that's just being open mind to everyone that you talk to. They probably know something that you do not, and you probably know something they do not. And so why am I going to try to, be this person on the totem pole of higher end of I'm better than you kind of person. That's how I look at it, of like the growth mindset. You don't really ever have that, and I don't feel like I ever have that. Like I'm just trying to learn and grow along with whoever wants to come on too. So I don't know how else to describe that. I mean, that's who I am and who I've always have been.
Sure.
So
no, I love that. I think, and for me, my thing was like before we have a 1-year-old son and a daughter on the way. Before I made a day in the life video of like my routine, and I just watched it recently. I'm like, like that's laughable because I have no time for myself now. But it's like, get up in the morning, go like walk the dog, read a book for an hour, eat breakfast, go. It's like now there's no time. But for me, it's the constant learning, right? It's like either reading books or listening to podcasts, like constantly soaking things up. Because I know a lot of people, I was joking with my wife, she listens like a murder podcast.
Murder mystery podcast.
Yeah, and I'm like, learn something while you're in there. I just want to be entertained. I'm like, this is a perfect time to learn something. Like, I just want to soak up as much as I can because it's like just trying to learn constantly. Like for me, I know a lot about marketing, but there's so much to learn in other areas that I'm not familiar with. It's like you just always got to keep sharpening the sword. You never know when you could use it somewhere else. So that's always really cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the growth mindset. Tell me, is this your first time doing 75 hard?
This is my first time. Okay. Yep.
What was your breaking point? There's always like I gotta do this.
There's a big breaking point. Man. So I definitely went on a nice 6-year bender. I would probably describe it as that. After I graduated college, I didn't drink or do anything. That I was just literally all wrestling in school, and then you get into this, 23 to 28, 29 party phase, and that's definitely where I was at. And honestly, I still definitely have that in me, and it's fun to have fun. I was definitely doing a little too much, and there's tipping points of me just trying to procrastinate this 75 hard. I don't want to do that. I don't want to stop drinking. It's a de-stressor. I'm stressed 24/7 as it is, and coincidentally enough, I'm not as stressed anymore that I'm actually on it. So it's kind of a weird catch-22 thing. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I really don't need to drink as much as I was, which I don't plan on doing that as much anymore, but I definitely want a beer or a whiskey because I like beer and whiskey and some wine. This sounds so great right now.
We'll change this up to quick so you don't have a relapse. You're like, I got some bourbon around the corner. Like, come here, give me that thing.
No,
Take a swig.
I'm only a few weeks out, so it's not that bad. And I really, the whole thing of it was, I needed to do it. I kept prolonging it, and then I got back from Nashville with one of my buddies who got deployed to Africa, and it was kind of his going away party for July 4th. So I'm like, cool, I'll go out there and hang out with you and your Marine friends. And that's what we did. It was a blast. And I get back, and I just remember being on the airplane. I'm like, God, this sucks. I've had 2 hours sleep the night before getting on the plane. Somehow made the Uber to the airport. Got home, slept for a day. Woke up, I'm like, okay, something needs to change here. And then, I'm like, okay, well, instead of waiting until after the state fair, let's just do it now. So I started July 8th, and I just flipped everything. I was like, if I can make it through one weekend of not drinking, I can make it the full 75 days. If I can do basically the 1 day at a time thing, 1 day at a time rule for me. If I can make those 2 workouts a day, read and drink water, eat a healthy, sustained diet for 1 day, I can do it 75 days. Sure. Big mindset believer again. You set your mind to something, you can accomplish literally anything, except maybe flying. You can just jump off a cliff and hopefully fly, but not going to
grow wings midair.
Yeah, not going to do that in a healthy way. And that's kind of what my mindset went to after that first week. Cool, second, third, fourth, my 9 weeks in, right? Something like that. It's cake. Definitely someday I'm pretty sure I got the flu/COVID during day 10 to 20. That was not fun. Still did everything though. Mm-hmm. Everything accomplished. It was maybe a little less strenuous workouts. That was sleeping a lot and then still getting everything in, still working. That was probably the hardest part. But after 20 to 30, that was better. 30 to 40 was my body's tired. This sucks. And now 40 to 60 right now, I'm just like, cool, what's next?
Nice. Yeah, and for people that are listening don't know, what are the rules? 75 hard is 75 consecutive days where you follow a list of basic deliverables you got to do every day, right? So it's a gallon of water, exercise twice a day. One of them has to be outside no matter what. Stick to some kind of meal plan, no alcohol.
No cheat meals.
No cheat meals either.
And read 10 pages.
10 pages a book of reading, So I was doing
nonfiction.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, you can't be reading Lord of the Rings trilogy. You're like, I love
as
this.
much as I want that.
Yeah. Because I know I did an adaptation of this for a year before Andy came out with the Live Hard program.
Yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't keep consistent. I knew myself in my schedule, and I was like, I could do 75 hard, but again, I mentioned this before we were on camera rolling. I wanted to leave myself buffer for like those moments in life where I'm at like my nephew's birthday party, like have a piece of cake, or I'm on the boat with my mom and my family, like I'll have a beer on the boat. But I also, I know I can do it because I've done a bodybuilding prep for like, I think it was 4 months. And it started in the summer during boating season.
Essentially the same thing.
My first weekend, we went down for 4th of July weekend on my mom's boat, and I had just started, and everyone's like, Ryan, you want a beer? Like, no, I'm good. Oh, and I brought my own food for the grill on the boat. Like, it was like miserable. I'm like, oh my, and that was like the hardest thing for me. But then, like you said, once you get past those bumps in the road, now it's just smooth sailing because like my food's made. I have all the decisions are made for me. Like, here's my workout plan. I'm doing Stairmaster 45 minutes a day. I'm doing all these different things. And you just get to this point where I felt the cleanliness in my own body, like mental clarity, like you don't have digestive issues, like your soreness, fatigue goes away because you're running on clean fuel. You're not running on some crappy cheap stuff. Like you got the cleanest fuel in your body to do what you got to do. So
yeah, it's a weird thing because I feel so mentally clear and content. Like, so when I switched to making sure I'm eating enough calories per day, I never ate enough in general, but now I'm like consistent with it. Like I'm hitting at least 23 to 2,500 calories a day, which is my goal with 180 grams of protein. My energy level spiked. Drinking a gallon of water, my energy level spiked. Like the first week before I got flu or whatever, I could not sleep at night. I'm like, why? Like, not because I had to pee so much, but I was just had so much energy and so wired. I lay in bed and like I just finished a 14-hour day, and I'm laying in bed and I've been up for 17 hours. I'm wide awake. Why am I wide awake? And I started going through everything I'm doing. I'm like, I just have more energy. I'm drinking less caffeine. I'm doing everything right. I'm like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Now I've sacrificed a lot. Like I don't really do much other than this is my daily routine. I usually wake up about 6:30. I either have the choice of going to ruck or I go to Lifetime, go work out. Then I go to work. I work for probably until 7. And then I have to read, and all the time I'm making sure I get my water in, getting the food in, which is easiest. That's the easiest piece for me is the food from Fresh Fit. And then as well as the second workout. So by the time I'm done, I'm like 7 to 8 p.m. finished for the day. And then people want to hang out or do something. I'm like, I'm good. Don't really want to. I have 2 hours myself. I'm going to bed.
Yep.
Peace. So I mean, social life has definitely been down, which is okay. Like it doesn't really. I'm a hermit.
Sure. Well, it helps to. I mean, it does help because I know just from the bodybuilding stuff, like I just wouldn't put myself in a situation where I'd be tempted to go off plan. Yeah. But also knowing that that's only for a short time, I think that's helpful too. But I would encourage people too, like if you're considering doing some kind of challenge like this or something that really pushes you, like do the social stuff. Just try to put in substitutions. Like if you need a hand, like I wish I'd have done this when I first started. Like if you need a beer in your hand, like grab a energy drink or a carbonated water or whatever you can do just for the habit of like holding something so you feel it, or still like talk to people and just do it. You know, I think that helps people open.
If I go out, I went out probably just a handful of times since I've actually started. I just do the water and I have it in my hand the whole time and I just talk. Definitely gets weird after about 11:30, like everyone else is drunk and you're not.
Yeah.
Like, all right, time to go to bed because I am bored.
Yeah. I hate being sober talking to drunk people. It's like my least favorite.
Rough.
And you're trying to take care of people. I'm like, I can't do this. Like everyone needs a ride home.
Different when, it's different when you're both drunk. You're like, okay. Yeah. And then you're like the sober one and like, damn. Yeah, this is wild.
Right. Like, get in the car, I'll take you home. Like, this is pretty wild. So, yeah, I get that. I was always the dad of the group when I was in college, so all my buddies would just get shit hammered. And luckily, they were all lighter than me, so I could just carry them home. Like, I'd Forrest Gump it, grab their ankles and their wrists and just throw them over my shoulder. So that was always fun. But it's like you said, I think you find the situations you want to be in.
Yeah.
But it's also got to make sense in your life because it sounds like work is a huge chunk of your life, like 12 hours a day on an average day. Yeah. So I'm sure things will change as you get older and things, vary up or roles change in your business where you can have some flexibility to step away and do things too. Because I know for me in my business, it was like I was talking with one of my guests a couple of days ago on the podcast, and I work on non-shoot days. I usually only work 6 hours a day. And everyone's like, dude, how do you do that? And it's like just putting like super strict, like I really want to prioritize time at home with
Yeah.
my wife and my son because it's like there's only a certain amount of time before we have another one, and then he doesn't get alone time. It's
Yeah.
like being where you need to be is really important, or knowing like early on in the business, I got to be putting these long days in because it's going to set us up for the growth later on, knowing that it's not a forever sentence, so to speak.
100%. I mean, that's where, I mean, we're at different phases of life, and that, I mean, that's A-okay. I think for anyone, they don't want to, you know, be mad at someone else or they have this, like, I hate that piece of it. It's like everyone, like, how I look at it is this. If you're 20 to 23, you see all your friends get married, don't put a label on it and feel like you have to get married. And that's literally what happens. Like, I've literally seen probably half my friends get divorced. I'm like 29.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm 29, single. Like, I didn't do that during that phase. I didn't want to. Now I'm like, cool. There's no pressure for me to get married or have children right now or anything like that. I'm like, I'm comfortable at 35. Like 35, maybe people start thinking about it or something. And it's different for everyone, and that's my comfortability of it, and that doesn't have to be your comfortability or someone else's. I get the fortune left. I can just literally just work all day if I want to. I don't have anything else to abide by other than that. So I know that's my thought process on that piece of it. Just there's so much comparison of what you should and shouldn't do with your life, and really just got to do what you feel is the best for you or what you want to do.
No, I totally agree with that because I think, and of my friend group, I was the first to get married. So it's like, but my wife and I have been together for 12 years since high school. So it's like, some people are like, it took that long. I'm like, well, yeah, we didn't want to get married in college and then you have a backyard wedding because you're broke and you can't afford anything.
Right.
But I think it's a lot of that. It's like, take it in your own time. Like I have some really close friends that are like very, very single, and everyone's like, dude, get your, but I'm like, no, you want to find the right person, not just a person.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you can marry somebody. It might not last that long, or you might be miserable. Like you want to find the person that complements what you're wanting to do. And I always say too, a lot of my friends that are, one of my buddies that I used to work with, he had a 5-year relationship that ended, and he was at the bar like every night looking for the next. I'm like, he's like, how do you even meet people? I'm like, dude, what do you like to do? And I like to go. He was really into outdoorsy stuff like boating and canoeing, and he did bushwhack, which like you go out with an axe. You've never heard of this?
No, what is that?
So you go out in the woods with like an axe and you just survive for a weekend. So you have to like build a shelter. You can fish for food. You like hunt if you want to. Like you go back to caveman days stuff. And I'm
That's
like,
wild.
And I'm like, dude, it's super weird. Like just go bushwhack out on like a main river and you'll probably run into someone else that does. And he did. He ran into somebody else that was doing it. And one of his girlfriend now, she was like in the van life, like she just kind of go from, and now that's what they do. They like live full time on the road. And I'm like, exactly. Like you just find.
That is awesome.
You find somebody that does what you do or your common interests. If you're into the gym, you'll probably meet someone at the gym. If you're into motorcycle riding, you go to a biker rally, you'll probably meet somebody. Like I feel like that's the best way to find someone. But I'm also like, I've been with the same person since I was like 16, so I'm probably not the best person to ask about that.
See, I have it like, I'm so, it's a weird relationship to talk about. I'm so freaking picky. Mm-hmm. It's a problem sometimes, but also it's like, I'm okay with being picky. If someone doesn't compliment, I don't want to be living the rest of my life with them. It's like you say I'm too stressed and I'm working too much. Well, I'm going to keep doing that because I like to do it.
Sure.
And that's what I run into too, is like, so it's a different mindset of like a business owner piece versus even the employee piece. I can talk about that too, or that 180 flip. It's different if you're employee versus the business owner. There's so much more going on, and not to bash employees, like anything like that. But
when they clock out, the job's done.
Yeah.
When you go home and you're trying to sleep, you're just like, what else can I do?
Yeah. Like it does not shut off for whatever reason, whatever purpose. My brain won't shut off. So yeah, I'm always thinking, always stressed. And then I've had relationships or people that I've talked to, and it's like, well, calm down, do something that you like to do. I'm like, I do like this. We need to take a break from work. I'm like, I don't want to take a break from work. Like that's the piece that is super hard to find. In
Sure.
general. There's no really place to go in and find someone that's in the fitness industry and is also a business owner and like, hey, what's up? I can't just go on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you might
hopefully find someone, but
yeah. Well, I think it's a big part of like knowing what your expectations are out of things too, because if you don't have that, people don't get it. And like you said, the employee versus the business owner mindset. Did it flip on right away for you when you purchased the place, or was there like old things you had to kick, like old habits, like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I'm done, or I should do this, or I should do that? Like, were there things that you had to do?
I've always been kind of a workaholic. Just because I know that it's going to pay off in the end. Because like when I do have a family, like I want the business to be able to running without me. And if my family wants to go up and do something, I want to be able to go do it and spend time with them. That's where my mindset goes. Like we're nowhere near that, and so like it's probably 6 years out for even to think about a family or a wife or etc. But it didn't. Honestly, it took a little bit for me to like see it or change it. Like again, I don't get too high or usually too low. Like when you purchase it, I pop a bottle of champagne, then it's on the next thing. I'm like, okay, what's next? Let's keep going. Or like we're getting ready to ship meals right now. Like what's next? What's going? Yeah, it probably switched. Probably took a good year for it to like actually like, oh, we're actually doing this. Like when we honestly hired our GMs and pushed them in, it's like, oh, I don't have to be in the store 24/7, which also kind of honestly I think backfired. We weren't in the store as much as we probably should have, as we were kind of realizing like things dipped a little bit, or like the little details are going missed. And that's no fault of their own. It's obviously on us. So it's like going into figuring all that piece out and actually being inside the business more and more and more. And yeah, you just work your face off, quite literally. But you can't be mad about it. Yeah, so it probably switched within year two and a half.
Okay.
So
The mindset shift.
Yeah, so like the last 6 months, it's like, oh, okay, we do have a business and it is doing good. How can we get to this thing to the next level? Okay, we need to work harder and work a little bit smarter on things we need to do, systematize of things. We hired a business coach too, which is nice. And that's more, I think, an accountability coach and a different outside perspective, someone that's not in it with us. So that part has been fun. We literally did that the last month. So that part, yeah, I enjoy that a lot. So definitely, I think anyone should honestly have a coach or a performance coach or some sort, not a therapist, but like performance coach, or maybe the therapist is a performance coach. I don't know. But that's how I look at it in a sense. It is someone that pushes you versus yourself, because everyone does need a little bit of that.
Sure. Yeah, I did a business owners mastermind that was like video business owners for a 6 month.
Who is it?
So it's a group called, it's Ryan Coral. He's out of Detroit. But it's just video business owners. So like people that do what I do, like shoot videos for clients and stuff. And that was really interesting because we'd get on, bi-monthly call, or twice a month we'd get on a call, and there'd be hot seats that people can talk about their issues. And it's interesting because there's some that are consistent with what I was experiencing, but also ones that are like people that are 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, that I'm like, oh, I should definitely like put some thought around to avoid that before it even happens. Like you see a wreck ahead, like I'm going to turn this way so I can avoid that. Stuff like that I think is interesting to think about too. But yeah, it's always fun trying to figure out like where you want to be, and especially in America, where it's like there's so many unique business. You could talk to your friend who's another business owner, and it's like they could be in a completely different place than you. It doesn't really parallel. Where if you're an employee at a company and you're a salesperson and there's 12 other ones, you could just talk to anyone else in the company and you'll know where you fall on the scale of like crappy versus really good. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think
it's weird.
It's having a measuring stick's helpful, because what can be measured can be improved. So
yeah. Everything's a KPI or number, but at the end of the day too, it is what you define success as well. Do I feel like we're successful? Yeah. Do I like we can be more successful? Yeah, a lot more.
Sure. Because what do you define success for the business? Is it just top line revenue? Is it profit? Is it work-life balance, cohesiveness with the team? Like what things are on your measuring stick for success for the company?
Right. Honestly, it's changed a little bit. It changes here now. Except for that work-life balance, I don't really believe in that piece.
It's just the work balance.
It's just the work balance. I would say, Gary Vee always said profit is a scoreboard. So whatever you're making, if you're green, you're green. If you're neutral, you're neutral. You're a tie, or if you're red, you're losing. That's probably ultimately the thing that I look at the most, just to make sure, like, obviously we have to take care of the business plus the customers and also the employees. So there's 3 things we got to look at, and we have to make sure there's money coming in for the profit to be able to pay everyone and keep the doors open, et cetera. That's probably how I define our success. So the higher that number goes, or then it probably turn into more stores, and how many meals we're getting out, how many people, or how much, fat loss someone's had. Notice I didn't say weight, I said fat, or muscle gain. That piece will definitely be a bigger part of it as we continue to grow. But as we're like the starting phases, I think it's definitely the P&L for right now.
Sure. Well, and that makes sense for you because your background's in business and finance,
Yeah.
like the numbers. So that's right on par for what I would expect you to say. But it's always, I like asking that question because sometimes it's totally different. For me, I knew like my growth for my business was like hire my team. Like my whole goal this year was like get my first employee, do all these different things. But then I realized like just being an owner operator, you have so much more flexibility to just like be gone for the day and no one has to rely on you. But also knowing like growth for different things. So it sounds like if you guys had a high enough number in profit in a year, your goal would be just to open another store. What's kind of your guys' goals in the next 3 to 5 years with growth opportunities?
Yes. Well, we learned a lot from Ankeny. So as we were crushing it in 2021, like murdering like crap. We were doing very, very, very well.
Yeah, I was reading, I did a little research before this. You're up 200% that next year.
Yeah.
Something nuts like that, right?
Wild.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting that. So in my mind, so again, we were calculated risk again. So don't take this as just jumping off a cliff. Sometimes you have to do it. Like the business, we definitely had to do it. Like we were okay. Like I wasn't too nervous about it. But so we're crushing it 2021. Okay, well, let's think about a second store. I'm a big believer in one, I didn't want to stay standardized of just one store like we were doing. Like the company, the customers don't deserve that. The employees don't deserve that. We don't deserve that. I don't want this to be a one-stop shop and one-store shop, like zero. So we were making enough money. Hey, let's look at building a second store in Ankeny, which we did, but it was a pain. That was pulling. I drank a lot, and it was probably 4 months. I probably shouldn't have. Probably should have done something hard, but there's 4 months in there. Like it was just stressful. Found the location and looked at like 8 different ones. Coincidentally enough, there's the only one in Ankeny that I think would have worked. We got that corner lot by like Main Street Cafe, Silk Elephant, and that.
Yeah, I stopped in there when you guys first opened just to grab a couple of meals because I'm like, I'm sure this was not cheap to get because it's a nice location, like brand new area, like brand new build. Did you build it out or did you lease it from there?
So we leased it out, but we also got built. So like in building out, you have a TI allowance. Mm-hmm. We negotiated a 40 to a 50. So we had $50 per square foot. So essentially we had $90,000 of free money to build that space out.
Nice.
So when we signed it, that was perfect. And then we were talking to contractors on top of that. And they were saying, oh, this build out's going to be super cheap. And you go in there, it doesn't look that expensive, right? Like they were.
It looks nice, but
it shouldn't have been of what it cost us to build it out. Is what I'm getting at. They were like,
did they just jack your rates up because they knew that they could?
COVID's building materials screwed everything. It went from I'll just say the numbers. It went from like $80,000, roughly $70,000-$80,000 for the entire build out, plumbing, electrical, all of that.
Yep.
That's what they're estimating it to be. Cool. Well, we had an extra $20,000 in left over. Hey, can we tie this back into our rent? Oh yeah, you can do that. So then at that point, we already had 3 months free rent, and then you multiply that out by 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, another 6 months. So we're going into the store thinking we're going to get 9 months of free rent starting April 1st of what would have been 2022. Okay.
You're sitting pretty. You're like, we got this.
Yeah, we're good. We are like, this is like blessed. Like we are crushing because then Urbandale is doing awesome too. Obviously when we open that store, like sales drop is just how it works. But going into it, now we're in March, nothing's happening in the build out yet. So I had to call the realtors and the contractor. Hey, what's going on? We're supposed to open April 1st. It is February 23rd. Like we're supposed to open, sign this lease in December. Why is nothing done? Or we're waiting on permits, et cetera. And the city takes a while for permits. FYI, it's not fun. So like waiting. Well, nothing still happened middle of March. Call them in. Look, we're supposed to open in 2 weeks. What's going on? There's literally no ground broke. Well, I'm about to call you. I'm like, oh no, here we go. It's going to be a little more expensive. How much? Well, probably another $170,000. I'm like, what?
Additional.
So then we had to come up, and that's without us buying, all the coolers, all the TVs, all the supplies we needed for the store. This is just the build out. So then I'm like, oh, well, that means we're gonna have to get a loan because we don't have that money just sitting in a bank. Like, no, like a 2-year company's not gonna have $150,000, basically $200,000 sitting in the bank to be able to do that on top of the TI. So cool. So then we had to go through this whole process of the SBA loan.
Yep.
So I went through that process, and that was a process and a half too, because you had to get all this paperwork done. There was 4 of us. So everyone had to be dot their I's, cross their T's. Personal financials, life insurance policies, everything has to be in. Got it all in. Some hiccups in there, which different story.
Right.
Won't really go down that rabbit hole. But finally got it in, and then we got the loan. Everything kicked off. Got a different contractor. So we had 3 different bids. Found the cheapest one, but that's what happened with Ankeny. So then we soft opened August of 2022. So we're April, May, June, July, August, 5 months out from when we should have been, plus an additional cost.
That's wild.
It was awful.
That's insane.
So we learned a lot.
Yeah, and it's like you said, you can't really count the score till it's happened type thing, because you're thinking we're sitting pretty, we're about to open in a month, and then stuff happens that way too. What was one of the biggest challenge besides the contractors or situation and the expense tripling in price or whatever it was? What was one of the biggest surprises that you had with opening a new location in Ankeny compared to? Did you say Urbandale was your first and only location?
Yeah,
Now you have 2
that's
locations,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yeah, so I'll hit that, then I'll explain like the 3 to 5 year plan here. So probably the biggest challenge is not understanding population demographics and dynamics of how much revenue Ankeny is going to bring in versus Urbandale. So that's going to drop a little bit just from people, not driving all the way to Urbandale now. And plus also incurring more overhead and employees and labor and all the loan, et cetera. So that part was kind of under anticipated by me of not understanding how it worked. And again, building this store was to break a lot of systems, a calculated risk and system to break to see what we did need to fix. And it broke probably every system we had in place.
Yep.
Like, we're not doing a third store for a little bit. So it did break a lot of systems. So now we're like basically hustling on the back end of what we're doing now is like rebuilding systems, getting things a lot more organized. That's the stuff no one really understands or gets to see behind the scenes. We're doing so much stuff behind the scenes right now that it's kind of mind-boggling of what we are doing. But that's what I would say. It's like it dropped Urbandale's revenue, increased Ankeny's by a good amount, but then also we're making less money because we are probably not making as much if we just had the Urbandale stores. We have more overhead and expenses. Mm-hmm. We're crushing it, but not like crushing it, if that makes sense. Sure. Like we were if we just had Urbandale.
Yeah, revenue could be higher, but now you got this extra SBA loan, you got all the expenses for moving in. It's the growing pains that happen where it's like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
That's literally how I feel.
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, this is the training ground for you to get to that point where when you hit more stores or your actual growth plan rolls out, you've worked through all the kinks before you say, we're going to open 10 stores next year. Like, what? Like, we only opened 1 so far. So tell me a little bit about your 3 to 5 year plan.
Yeah, so 3 to 5, a couple of things. So within the end of the month, this is September 5th today, right?
Yep.
Yeah. At the end of the month, even in the next couple of weeks, we should start shipping across the state of Iowa. That's our phase 1, really. New website, all that's pretty much done. We're just waiting on some website development piece that I don't know how to do, so I have to hire it out, and they're having issues, so then it's a constant battle with that. So that's always something. But that'll be like kind of the phase 1, shipping across the state of Iowa. And then in the next 3 to 4 years, we're hoping to either build a new store, new location, as we're pumping out about 6,000 meals a week, and we just use our cooler, or not cooler, or current kitchen on the front day, so 8:30 to 4:30. So we have basically 2 extra shifts in that we could do. Or we have another route of doing a commercial kitchen, a bigger one that is USDA certified, and then we can ship across the entire Midwest. So essentially, we're going to a $700 population base in Des Moines area, Des Moines Metro for delivery and all that, local pickup, and going inside the store to a 3.4 million for shipping in the state of Iowa. Build that next kitchen. We go from a 3.3 to a 30 million base. So that's kind of where I'm leaning toward. There's a little higher risk, but also a faster ROI on it. And then with the store, like next store, probably do like Iowa City or somewhere easy like that. Out in states, we have to do that way, and just deliver food there. And there's like a couple different avenues we could do, but leaning toward the kitchen right now is we need an office, one for Becca, And as we're getting to that scale, we're going to have more people to be able to come in and actually work for customer service or things on that line.
Sure. No, I love that. And I think it's interesting too. Do you guys have a shipping partner, or do you have like a refrigerator truck that somebody from your team drives all the deliveries out to?
Yeah, we just have it. Right now we just do that localized delivery on like a cooler bag and stuff like that. So that'd be simple. And then FedEx has next day delivery.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So if we do it right, so basically how it's going to work for shipping is today's Tuesday. They're going to order Tuesday. We get their order on Wednesday. FedEx picks it up Wednesday and they ships it out by Thursday to their door. And we can also do that with stores. They have freight. So if everything kind of goes right and the workflow works as it should, hopefully, we'll be able to do Iowa City, and then FedEx actually just pick up those boxes and then ship it directly to the stores. So we don't have to even worry about getting it delivered to different. And that kind of opens up kind of a franchise model too of satellite stores and then the central hub if we do that route. There's so many different routes we can do right now. That's kind of figuring out what we want to do or how to approach it.
Sure. No, dude, I love hearing like the vision for it, because I don't have a whole lot of experience in restaurants, but it's like, if I was thinking about this, how would I think about it? And I think you guys are going the right route, where it's prove the model locally, open a second store in the metro, look at the state, and then look nationwide. Because I think, and especially as your guys' marketing changes, because when you go nationwide, people have to hear from you. Like, as someone in Oregon, how would they ever know who you guys are? It's like that's when you lean on marketing and getting a brand going and like all the different stuff. But even just like franchise partners or a supplement store that carries your stuff, a little refrigerator cooler that they could have, like those partnerships could be huge too.
Kind of. So I've tampered with this already, and there's a lot of testing. So
Which would be like a wholesale model, right?
Yeah, wholesale model doesn't work great for us or what we've learned. We've tried it probably 4 or 5, 6, 7 times in different gyms or supplement stores. That like the food, they don't have enough volume of customers coming in. Like if you go to a supplement store, a 5-star, that's the company we bought Fresh It from is 5-star Nutrition, if anyone wants to know.
Sure.
But we look at that and they see 40 people a day. We see upwards of 200 people a day coming in. Like there's not enough traction and turn and burn on their end to be able to actually even sell the food. And we're keeping it all fresh. So at that point, the food's going to go bad before they even get it. Same with the gyms. They don't have enough new faces coming inside to really enjoy the food for the 5th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So you have the same 100 people coming in every single day for the workout. They're going to get tired of the food a lot faster than if you have, every 3 weeks is probably what we see. 2 to 3 weeks is when people come back on a consistent basis. We do have people that are weekly, but people eventually get tired of the food. I usually don't, but it's just part of me. So that wholesale piece doesn't work great.
Sure. Super interesting. I think it's
weird.
It's a unique, because it's like you guys are a restaurant, but it's not a come in, sit down, waiter, like full service. It's like you can also ship, which makes you unique in that way too. But also if someone gets on a meal plan with you, the likelihood of the customer lifetime value of someone that does a meal plan that goes from, if I go to Silk Elephant across the street from you guys, and we love going there because I love Thai food and it's close by. So say my wife and I go there like once every 2 months. It's like, okay, yeah, that's 6 visits a year is my customer lifetime value. But if I'm going to you guys, it's like a part of my life. It's like every day I'm eating something from your guys' kitchen, and the likelihood of rebuy is so much higher, especially if I'm losing weight I'm losing fat, or I'm gaining muscle, or I'm feeling more confident in my appearance or my physical changes. The likelihood of repurchase has got to be super high. So that's super interesting to think about from a business model standpoint.
Just with us, people get the connotation of like expensive. Is it expensive? It can be. Yeah, if you don't think about it the right way, everything has a perceived value. I mean, it's our job to have that perceived value of, hey, this is what you're getting from it, not what you actually think you're getting from it. That's definitely the hardest part. People do think they can just do all the meal prep on their own, but what do you get from that? You're probably eating the same thing every single day. With us, you don't. Cool. Now I have to count all my calories and macros. Oh, what do? We count all the calories and macros. Oh, now I got to clean up after myself. What do? You can just toss the freaking thing in the garbage, or recycle it, whatever you want to do. We're trying to find some compostable stuff too. That's freaking hard.
It's the easy button for your healthy
has
eating.
All that. You're just paying basically us, and you don't have to go shopping. Like you're paying us to do the macro counting, calorie macroing for you per meal. Have the variety. You don't have to go shopping. You don't have to cook. You don't have to clean up. You don't have to do anything. You just throw the microwave 90 seconds and you're done. And then you can spend more time on doing what you love to do or working to maybe make more money. And now all of a sudden hey, what do you know it? I'm making more money. I can probably afford more of those now too as well, or something else. I'm not spending my time or 10 hours of my time doing this cooking versus what 10 hours time could I be making $300 more an hour, etc.
Sure. No, I think that's great. And I think, and I'll have to remind me after we get off, because I think there's a guy. Are you familiar with Mom's Meals in Ankeny?
Yep.
We shot an interview with them, and I think it'd be a super interesting
that'd
person
be
to like
fun.
connect you with them, because they've been growing like crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy.
And they have this huge kitchen in Ankeny, and they do a model like that, but it's all tailored towards senior citizens with specific dietary needs.
Yeah, the Medicare, Medicaid stuff, which is great. They definitely need that.
Yeah.
Like, they're not even in our market. Like
Right.
we're definitely two different companies attacking two different markets, which is nice. It's fun seeing them grow. It's really kind of awarding, and it's fun to look up to someone bigger than you as well. They're accomplishing something great. We're trying to accomplish something great. So
yeah, I love that. So I'll have to remind me, and I'll connect you with them. I think they're really cool people. But if you had one piece of advice to kind of tie this all together for somebody that's a younger business owner that's listening, and they have an idea, or they're working for a company they'd want to buy or get into a business, what would be your advice for someone that's looking into this? Like they're an employee, but they want to become a business owner. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have for somebody like that?
I would say, think about this one. Be comfortable with who you are and know that it's going to take a lot of work, and be okay with that. You are going to sacrifice bits and pieces of your life to be able to do what you want to do, and you have to be okay with that. And then don't be scared of the hustle and the grind, and jump all in. Like, that's what you have to do. If you're scared, if you have doubts, don't do it. Because if you do have doubts, they're just going to keep creeping up on you, and you're going to have a lot of self-doubt, and you're not going to be able to accomplish it. That's what I would say. Just believe in yourself.
Love that, man. Biggest benefit that you've had being a business owner and seeing the success you've had with Fresh Fit Meals, what's been the biggest benefit for you personally?
Biggest benefit for me, I mean, I just get a little more freedom, but it is fun to be able to coach and train employees. And seeing their growth as when they first started, and seeing where they are, or they're purchasing a house or things like that. It's really cool to see. It's like, it's taken me a while to see, like, okay, I have to provide for these people as they are employees. Like, if we go out of business, we don't have to pay them anymore, or they can't work here anymore. So, like, in a sense, we are responsible for a lot of their livelihood. So if we don't grow at a certain rate, they can't make more money. So that's also my responsibility. Like, hey, we need to make sure we're growing at a reasonable fast rate, not to kill the company, but to make sure, they're taken care of and they can see growth too and make more money and live the lifestyle they want to do. That's probably the most rewarding thing, is seeing that piece. A little goosebumps coming on. So it is cool. It's fun to see that and see their happiness and see their success and how much they've learned and grown from the time we've taken it over, and continue to try to build it with other people rather than just thinking about ourselves. So
I love that, man. I think that the goosebump moments are what
they're fun.
They're what makes it. You're not just working a job for 12 hours a day. You're not just grinding the axe, the grindstone every day for no reason. It's like you're doing it for a purpose, and I think that's the big picture why stuff is why people keep doing what they're doing. So I love hearing that too. For people that are curious to connect with you, where's the best place they can learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, so freshfitmeals.com, Fresh Fit Meals Urbandale, Fresh Fit Meals Ankeny. My personal is Aaron J. Anderson for Instagram, or Aaron Anderson on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm always open to connect, hang out. Doesn't really matter to me. Anything business related or fitness, I'm usually all in, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. This is fun.
Sure.
So,
love it, man. It's Aaron if you're trying to spell it.
Yeah,
so
Aaron.
have you been getting all the Key and Peele skits? Everybody.
I actually refused to watch that for a full year. Everyone's like, hey, Aaron, I'm like, I'm not watching it. I'm not doing it. I'm also pretty stubborn at sometimes. Sure. And I finally watched. I'm like, all right, that was pretty freaking good. That was solid.
Sure. Unless your name's like B-Rad, like
right.
Brad or whatever, like, or the the principal. Oh gosh, it's gonna escape me, but it's O'Shea Hennessy, O'Shaughnessy, and they're just like, get out of here! Oh my gosh, it's so funny. So yeah, awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. Like I said, we'll put all the links to Aaron's stuff below. Check out Fresh Fit Meals. You brought some for me in the fridge, so we'll check that out for lunch today. So thank you so much for that. And for the energy drinks.
Oh, yeah.
One final cheers. We'll sign off.
Cheers.
Awesome. First form coming in clutch.
Always good.
Awesome, man. All right, guys, you've listened to another episode of the Rhymes with Odd Show. My name is Ryan Snod. It rhymes with odd, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.